his meeting, in his hearings today on Capitol Hill. I think it may be that Donald Trump is not going to try to put the brakes on this by telling Netanyahu not to do it. And it seems the indications are that it could be imminent because of the fact that our diplomats are being recalled in some key Arab states in the region where they could be at risk should such a thing happen. So this looks to be like a scary situation developing. I know that there are talks still with Steve Witkoff, our representative that is helping negotiate these in Amman, Jordan, with the Iranians. That's going to get real feisty, I can guarantee you as well. And we'll see what's happening. It's hard to tell. It seems like Donald Trump is, in what he said today, is telling Iran, hey, I ain't going to try to stop these guys if you're not going to move on anything.
Mm-hmm. You think America will take part in refueling planes or providing bunker-busting bombs or what?
Good question. I think there's some refueling capability in the Israeli Defense Forces, if I recall correctly. But, at the end of the day, we just had this IATA report come out. They are the body that has regularly been investigating Iran for many, many years now. This is the first time in 20 years that they have said that Iran is doing this nuclear program behind the scenes and not letting the international community know what's going on, and that they have been obtaining highly enriched uranium, which is only necessary for making a bomb. So I think that has helped precipitate what may be going on here. And at the end of the day, you got to have good actors on both sides. Obviously, Iran is not a good actor at all, but if you're negotiating, you have to have good actors on both sides. And Iran just may have had their hand tipped on what they're doing, and that's obviously going to spark the ire of everyone in the international community, but certainly Israel, who probably is most at risk from anything that Iran would do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to what has been running nonstop on Fox News today, because if it's easy and simple, Fox News, in my opinion, is going to run it all day long because it's a network for first-grade conservatives, kind of like going to some of the conservative so-called conferences. You're never going to get anything too deep because they try to keep it very, very shallow for the masses. We don't do that here. We go deep. And that's why we have a very successful network, because we are programming for thinking people, and thinking people tend to be successful people. Successful people tend to also have the wherewithal to support your network. And so that's one reason why our network is succeeding when a lot of others have already failed. But Fox News, they really like to keep it, I think, in my opinion, really shallow. So when something happens like a little brawl, they're going to run this thing all day long, which they've been doing. Not that it's not an interesting story, but we don't need to spend 8 hours on it. But let's briefly talk about it, because it is manifesting itself now on Capitol Hill, and particularly outside John Thune's office, apparently. Here is the U.S. Senator, one of the U.S. Senators from California, I guess pushing his way into a press conference today in California with Kristi Noem. Here we go.
Hands up, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your hands off.
Many of our ICE agents have been docked for doing their duty. They have been targeted.
All right. The other videos show them wrestling him to the ground and handcuffing him and all this. I don't know. My initial reaction when I saw it is more theater. I mean, you almost have to wonder, is this stuff planned? I mean, all the theater. We have such serious problems in this country. Do you think the American people really have time for this? I'm not saying this guy's innocent. I'm not saying that. But it just seems like at some point we have to try to stop all the theater and the drama and the nonstop, name calling and the nonstop, you're not invited to the picnic. Well, now you're invited to the White House picnic, i.e. Rand Paul. And this guy's a U.S. senator, while I think he's a massive progressive at best, probably worse than that. I don't know. It's just at some point, where are the adults in the room? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. This just doesn't look good for any of us. What I'm trying to say, it doesn't look good for Kristi Noem, DHS, for this senator. The American people are like, where are the adults? And then, of course, this is, remember, Kristi Noem has got her, I think those are fake extensions. My wife tells me those are fake extensions, Brandon. Her hair is not really that long. I mean, she's constantly playing, it looks like, G.I. Jane. I mean, I don't think she has any credibility left, frankly. I know she's probably preparing to run for president or vice president, but who knows? I just think at the end of the day, Americans are getting sick of this. What say you?
I'm no fan of Kristi Noem. Never have been. I mean, apparently, she seems like she's doing what the president's asking her to do. She was a member of Congress when I was on Capitol Hill, and she did what leadership told her to do. And and then Padilla. Listen, this guy's kind of shallow. A bipartisan thing that I have said for many, many years, having worked on Capitol Hill, in and around every member of Congress. I mean, some of them, even when you're a chief of staff, you don't run into all of them, but the majority of them, I've always said that it really scares me who we elect to Congress. Mm-hmm. It's really, really scary. And Padilla fits that bill amongst many, many others. Like it's just odd. Half or more of the people up there. And again, I mean it in a bipartisan way. It really scares me, and it's sad. Padilla's being a baby. I don't know that you push the guy out of the meeting. There might have been a reason to do it, and I'm not going to say, be too critical, but it kind of you can go either way on this one. But you can let him look like a fool. Sometimes you just let people have enough rope to hang themselves.
Right. And I think you just said the thing. What I'm saying is, why push back on him so much and drag him to the hall, wrestle him to the floor, and cuff him? Whether I agree with him or disagree with him, he is a U.S. senator. She's in California. He's there. And when he said, hey, I'm a U.S. senator, I would think some of the people in that room knew exactly who he was, including people on her staff and security. And could have said, okay, he is a U.S. senator. Calm down, everybody. Everybody just stop. Senator, stand over here. We can arrange a private meeting for you, or if you'd like to ask a question. But why go to this level? Again, I think he introduced it, but why does the other side take the bait? Because at the end of the day, now I don't think either side looks good. And I go back to my original point. Americans have real problems. They have real problems, and they see the two sides behaving like this. And this isn't the first time. It's just, these kind of things are going on constantly, whether it's Thomas Massey being attacked, Rand Paul being attacked. Now you're going after this guy. It just seems like, where are the adults in the room? Can I keep using that phrase? Is that fair?
It's entirely fair. Listen, Alex Padilla is stupid enough as a Democrat to think that they need to be a physical protester to get things done. He's so stupid, and I'm going to use the word, he's so stupid, he doesn't know how to use all the power of a senator. Like a senator has a lot of stuff in their toolbox compared to a member of the House of Representatives that they can use. So he's apparently not smart enough to figure out that side. On the other side of this, apparently Kristi Noem doesn't feel she's as capable as Pete Hegseth or Marco Rubio or, name anybody else in the administration that have been highly competent in answering the stupid questions of members of Congress in an effective way. She apparently doesn't feel like she can do it there. I mean, if it had been me, I'd have let him stand there and scream and yell, and
exactly.
then I'd have made the comeback.
Exactly.
It's so simple.
And then her side and herself would have looked very strong, very tolerant, right?
Yeah, and it is possible security people didn't know who he was.
I don't buy that.
Who cares about it? But they probably did, and she probably directed them to do it, and it's incredibly
If somebody was saying
short-sighted.
senator when they were pushing him out of the room, senator.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Good point. Yeah, I wouldn't think about that. Yeah, listen, it is these people, let them look dumb. They look horrible. Look at what's happening with all these literal riots. Democrats look like fools. Don't give them anything. And it is just as strong to stand there and let him scream in your face and calmly stand there with the serene look on your face and then let him blow off his steam and at the end show him who he is. It's that simple.
That I think you and I are saying the exact same thing. And so they missed an opportunity, and instead they look like this is just a schoolyard pushing match, and they didn't have to go to their level, and they look just as bad as he does. And again, the average person watching it is just thinking to themselves, this is politics in America now. This is what it's come to. They can't even communicate or debate or, have a debate, right? I watched a video today of Ronald Reagan getting very loud. Ronald Reagan getting very loud, walking through, I think, the Bronx in New York while he was campaigning in 1980 and having a debate with people, right? People that were wanting more handouts. And he was debating and saying what Carter was doing versus what he was going to do. Great. He didn't push his Secret Service to mow the people down. He debated with them. Yeah.
He was a man of the people, by the way. He was a calmer, more purposeful approach, seemingly. Although I think Donald Trump's a very purposeful approach person. Ronald Reagan was always more thoughtful and calm in his overall responses, serene inside. The one thing that both he and Donald Trump have is that you're just not going to fluster them. Like, you're not going to put them in a place where they feel that they're on the defensive on anything. And Ronald Reagan was a real man. I mean, he was, and even though he was always seemingly very nice, he had fight in him. He knew what he was going to take on. He was never vindictive in his approach, but he knew he had to come back on and how to do it and when to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, listen, there are too many weak people in the world, and a lot of them are members of Congress.
Indeed. In fact, here's that video from 1980s. Ronald Reagan, 1980s, running for president. It's Jimmy Carter, 1980. He's in the Bronx. Watch what he does. Watch. He didn't tell his Secret Service, grab her out of the way. No, he stood there and debated her. Here we go.
I'm trying to tell you. I am trying to tell you that I know now there is no program or promise that a president can make that the federal government can come in and wave a wand and do this. It is 3 years and nothing has been done. Now, that was almost 3 years ago, and today the president blames the local officials, the mayor of the city and others, and says they called it off.
What are you going to do?
Well, the world between the private sector and using tax incentives to give the people who will take jobs, the people who will come in here and build businesses, that will give them an incentive to come in because they'll get a tax break while they are putting those businesses and getting them established to provide jobs. So listen for a minute. What I'm trying to tell you is I can't do a damn thing for you if I don't get elected.
No, but Anthony, what are you going to do anyway? We'll make promises.
I just finished telling you and you wouldn't stop talking to listen. That if I get in the White House, I won't do the same thing Mr. Carter did and forget all about this.
Well, there you go. Maybe Kristi Noem should learn from Reagan and stand there and have a debate.
By the way, one of two presidents that are Republicans that went into one of the most Democrat areas of the country, the Bronx, and knocked it out of the park. Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump actually in so many ways is finishing out the Reagan agenda. And no man's perfect. We haven't had a perfect president yet. We have had a couple guys in these two guys who kind of understood what needed to be done, did as much as they could do with the situation that was handed them, and acted upon it. And it's so funny, all the TDS Republicans that get all nutsoid over Donald Trump, and they do so on the basis of him not being Reagan-esque. even Mike Pence, friend of mine, does this. And I'm like, no, this is the Reagan agenda moving forward. And we should be thankful that that both of them have ever been president, because you need people who internally can figure out what needs to be done and stick with it. And the American people love that in their politicians, not these weak-kneed, and I could use other terms that I don't want to use on a family program, people who are really, really horrible at the fact that they are crass politicians who just want the benefits and favors of that position that they can get for themselves, and don't understand that their role and purpose is to figure out what needs to be done and doing it. Bob Beal, a former board member of Focus on the Family, who was a consultant to for-profit and nonprofit companies, he gave a definition of leadership that stayed with me my whole life. It's highly influenced me. And it says this: leadership is knowing what to do next, knowing why that's important, and knowing how to bring appropriate resources to bear on the need at hand. Ronald Reagan exemplified that. Donald Trump exemplifies it.
What state was Bob Beal from? Do you remember?
I think he's from Tennessee. I can't remember precisely, though. And I talked to him a couple times, but in fact, I'm thinking about him a little bit because I've got a book of his that is just I've just picked up again and recently reading. And except for that definition of leadership, it stayed in my mind my whole time. If you really source this out and think through that definition, you understand what it takes to get things done. That doesn't mean you're going to be perfect at it. It just means you're going to have better understanding. Understanding is how you accomplish things. There are certain people that get into politics who have it. Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump are definitely two of those people.
And now members of the House, I don't know if there's any senators, but apparently some members of the House are now headed to the office of John Thune because of this a little pushing match with the U.S. Senator in California. Here's what we got tonight. And I don't know how far they got with that. But I think we also have a clip tonight from the Speaker of the House. Let's see what he has to say. Here we go.
Continue doing that.
Mr. Speaker, did federal agents go too far the way they treated Senator Padilla today? Was that a bridge too far?
I saw the same video, a very brief video that I think many people did. I think the senator's actions, my view is it was wildly inappropriate. You don't charge a sitting cabinet secretary, and everybody can draw their own conclusions. You can see it's a heated debate here.
People heckling you here, Mr. Speaker?
I'm not going to respond to that. Look, let me just, hold on, wait just a second. I think the American people can draw their own conclusions. They saw a senator acting like wildly inappropriate. I'll leave it at that.
But what about the way he was treated by those agents?
What I saw was agents asking him to quieten down so that the secretary could continue her press conference. He refused to do so. What were they supposed to do? They have to restrain someone who is engaging in that kind of behavior. They moved him out of the room.
Throw him to the ground, handcuff him.
A sitting member of Congress should not act like that. It is beneath a member of Congress. It is beneath a U.S. senator. They're supposed to lead by example, and that is not a good example. We have to turn the temperature down in this country and not escalate it. The Democrat Party is on the wrong side. They are defending lawbreakers, and now they are acting like lawbreakers themselves. And I think
oversight.
That's oversight. Charging a cabinet secretary in a press conference, I beg to differ. I think that people do as well. I think those actions speak for themselves.
Do you have anything to say about lowering the temperature in the country right now? What would you say?
Scott, I have things to say about lowering the temperature all the time. I am very consistent in this. We have been trying to do this since I was handed the gavel in before. I founded the Honor and Civility Caucus in the Congress, for crying out loud, when I got here in 2017. I think that we should act according to our offices. We have a duty and a responsibility to set a tone, an example in our actions. And I encourage every member of this body to do it in the House and Senate. We have to turn the temperature down. We need to be on the side of the rule of law. We need to be on the side of law and order. We need to be on the side of calm and not chaos. And when members go into these settings and act this way, that when they push law enforcement agents around, when they storm cabinet secretaries in a press conference, I think it is wildly inappropriate behavior, and I think it sets a terrible message and tone for the rest of the country.
Will there be an investigation? Will there be a House investigation?
This is a Senate side issue, but I certainly hope that behavior is not repeated over here.
All right, there we go. I'm going to go back to what I said and what you've said. She should have just simply he keeps saying charged. I don't know that he was even that close to her. She sounded like she was further back in the room. So, I mean, let's not over exaggerate it, Mr. Speaker. I don't think he was charging her. If there's any video of him charging her, I'd like to see it. But again, missed opportunity. But I think you nailed it, actually, Jim. Missed opportunity, because I think her handlers know they're not dealing with the sharpest individual here in Kristi Noem. Maybe a nice lady, but not the sharpest lady in the in the administration, and maybe couldn't handle standing there on her own debating.
Well, I'll tell you this. A lot of the fundamental points that Johnson made about Padilla is correct, but I'm going to tell you this. If I had been a member of Congress when he started the Honor and Civility Caucus, I can guarantee you I would not have been a member. You know, I've got this concept.
Why would you have not been a member?
Because I'm against nice. But I started a little podcast a while back, and in fact, I recently shared it. I've been having these background conversations with people in the church, so-called influencers that are on this progressive left thing. You know, you're probably familiar with this, Brandon, because I know you're following this sort of thing. But at the Southern Baptist Convention in Dallas this week, there was a motion to get rid of the ERLC, the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, which was once a fantastic institution founded in the 1990s that helped advance, actually, from a Christian perspective, policy in the United States that Russell Moore took over some years ago and turned into a progressive playground, to the point that Brent Leatherwood was saying, oh, we should be so happy that Ketanji Brown Jackson may be the first black woman, and we should be happy about it, as she can't define a woman, and she's a radical pro-abort. Listen, the reason I'm against nice, and I have a long discussion on this. Maybe you and I can do a long conversation on it sometime, because I think it's interesting. But basically, there's no biblical command to be nice. There's really not even a rational reason to be nice. Now, we should be kind. The biblical command is kindness. But as I say all the time, no parent who doesn't discipline their child can be considered very kind at all, and no child being disciplined thinks it's very nice. When you're in a situation where moral clarity is necessary, then you don't back down and cower away. You press it hard. That's the time to do it. Another book, and I've shared it with you before, I think, but this book, and my friend Troy Newman of Operation Rescue, and I just had him read this, and he texted me today. He says, oh, fantastic book. Oscar Kuhlman wrote this book, The State in the New Testament. And one of the things that he does very well pointing out, he had a very celebrated career in theology in the early 20th century, up to the mid-20th century. What he rightly points out here is that we twist the command in Romans 13. I know you have a lot of Christians that obviously that listen to this, and that's what you're all about, and I am too. Romans 13, it gives a command to honor the magistrate, and that is the term used, magistrate. I agree that we need to do that. That does not mean we cower before it, because there is real evil that happens in the middle of these government processes. Ephesians 6 applies just as much, because the evil that moves in institutions are the principalities and powers of darkness that Apostle Paul referred to in Ephesians 6. There is real evil that moves in these things, and there has to be a real effort to oppose it. This is another reason why I say there's no command to be nice, and Oscar Kuhlman deals with that in that book very well. You've got.
And by the way, I agree with you on Romans 13, because Romans 13 is not a blanket endorsement of all governments. It's a template. It's a template for what government is to do. You don't have to create governments. That's why our founding documents say governments are organized among men. Our rights come from God. They come from God, and they're given to man, and then government is to be a defender of God-given rights. But as we've already discussed many times here, the first civil rights, first civil authority given to man coming up the ark was given to Noah and his family, not civil government. We are the ones that hold the power of civil authority, and then we give it to individuals in government, because that's individuals coming together collectively to defend individual right. But we never give up the right as sovereign individual citizens with civil authority. We operate our civil authority when we come together with elected officials who in our republic are our agents. So instead of me going out and being an attorney or filing in small claims or court, I hire an agent to represent me. Same thing with an insurance agent. But I hold the power. They work for me. I can fire them anytime. I never gave up my authority. These guys are our agents. They don't possess the authority. We, the people, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. By the way, do you know what the word ignorant actually, I already gave it away. The word nice. We used to have a Worldview speaker, Bill Jack, who used to speak on this. The word nice is actually derived from the word ignorant. Did you know that?
Yes, and its definition as well that you'll find in the dictionary is about putting things in order. But what it really means is that people hate things being out of order. But to go to your point, it is a fundamental principle that we are as the civil authorities over our own lives. And as John Locke said in 2 Treatises of Government, that all government starts in the family, and that we cede certain aspects of our natural right of government to the state to take care of certain things in a very limited fashion, preferably. But the funny thing is that general principle is true, but it's also codified in our Constitution. The preamble to the Constitution is not a nice introduction, and then we'll get to the legal language. It is legal language. It's the idea of popular sovereignty. We are the kings. But I will tell you this, the reality of what we face as it relates to Romans 13 as Christians is this: the magistrate should be honored. And Paul, as Oscar Kuhlman points out, was giving an idealized version of the state to make the point about the proper roles. And he's right about that. And God is sovereign over nations. But listen, I'm trying to press hard with people nowadays to understand this. Christians. Yeah, it's the magistrate. That would be like your police officer. It might be a judge, and it'd be something in the executive branch. You would show some respect there. But there's no respect of that sort to legislators at all. The only respect we owe legislators is what you would normally provide in human discourse under God's commands related to kindness. But the respect that's in Romans 13 does not biblically apply at all to legislators, because they don't have the magistrate place. They're making laws, and we need to engage them directly.
And the Bible also says to give honor to those who are worthy of honor. Some of these people don't deserve to get any kind of honor at all. They're actually
I'm not holding back at all when I tell you it scares me who we elect.
Yeah, I bet you are. I wish I had time to get to it. Have you seen this guy? This guy claims that we have soldiers on the moon. Have you heard this?
A soldier,
I have not.
Including actually going to war and fighting to defend the freedoms. Moon, who's a soldier yesterday, who's on the moon, who's a soldier. Talked to an astronaut yesterday who's on the moon, who's a soldier.
Really? We have an astronaut who's on the moon, who's a soldier. Okay. I've tried to figure that one out. All right.
I don't know what to say. I really don't.
This guy's coming out of the Pentagon. This guy was at the Pentagon talking to Fox News. All right, there you go, folks. Apparently China's on the dark side of the moon. Do you guys know that? Oh, my. All right, theconservativecaucus.org. That's our website. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Jim. Take care, folks. Tonight on the Worldview Report, Iran rejected the latest U.S. offer on how to deal with its nuclear program and now appears resigned to war with the U.S., warning it has missiles that can reach every U.S. military base in the Middle East. The leader of the Mexican Senate has declared that migrants rioting in Los Angeles are in their homeland and that California is part of Mexico. It's no longer just L.A. The Seattle Police Department announces it will not cooperate with ICE in President Trump's deportation plans as more cities run hot in rebellion. Rioting is now taking hold in Chicago, New York, Atlanta, and other cities. With President Trump's mobilizing of 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines, Americans are wondering, what are the rules of engagement? we've got some answers from a top active duty officer. Another company gets FDA approval to sell lab-grown fish. And Republicans in Congress advance a bill to repeal a law used by Democrats to prosecute pro-life elderly grandmothers. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brandon House. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brandon House.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. I'm Brandon House. Leading off tonight, war with Iran is starting to look more and more like a foregone conclusion. The Cradle reports that Iran's defense minister said on Wednesday that Tehran will strike U.S. military bases in the region if nuclear talks fail and Washington decides to launch an attack on the Islamic Republic, warning the U.S. to leave the region in the case of any conflict. The Iranian defense minister stated, quote, "Some officials on the other side threaten conflict if negotiations don't come to fruition. If a conflict is imposed on us, all U.S. bases are within our reach, and we will boldly target them in host countries," end quote. He said Iran had recently tested a missile with a 2-ton warhead, adding that, quote, "We have made very good progress in defense affairs. Our operational forces are fully equipped. If a conflict is imposed on us, the casualties of the other party will definitely be much higher than ours," end quote. The 6th round of indirect U.S.-Iran talks is set for Sunday, and they were reportedly canceled on Wednesday. The Iranian defense minister's comments, well, they came in response to escalating threats from Washington, D.C. Those coincided with increased tensions in nuclear talks between Iran and the U.S. When asked at a hearing of the House of Representatives on Tuesday if Washington is prepared to respond with overwhelming force to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran, the chief of U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, said he has, quote, "provided the Secretary of Defense and the President a wide range of options," end quote. U.S. President Donald Trump said on the same day in an interview with Fox News' Bret Baier that Iran has become, quote, "much more aggressive," end quote, in nuclear talks. And, quote, "they're just asking for things you can't do. They don't want to give up what they have to give up," end quote. And then he added, quote, "it's disappointing," end quote, "because," quote, "the alternative is a very, very dire one," end quote. And then Trump on Monday said that he was less confident in the ability to reach a deal. Iran, they have rejected a new U.S. proposal that would significantly constrain its ability to enrich uranium. And they have said that it will soon put forward a counteroffer. President Trump has repeatedly threatened to attack Iran if the negotiations fail. Israel, they have drawn up plans for an attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. In fact, in a phone call between Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday, President Trump said he is still pushing for a deal, adding that an Israeli attack on Iran would be unhelpful and is, quote, "off limits," end quote, at the moment. That's according to Israeli reports. However, President Trump has previously signaled that Israel would play a key role in any attack in the event that nuclear negotiations fail. We're also being told that Israel maybe cannot do it on their own, that they have to have the help of the U.S. in some capacity, perhaps from bunker-busting bombs to help refueling their aircraft on the trip from Israel to Iran and back. Either way, it looks like America may get tied into this. I would highly suggest, if that's the case, and I hope it's not, for many reasons I've stated on Brandon House Live, including the very likelihood we have terror cells here in the U.S., but I would hope that President Trump would hold a address from the Oval Office and address the American people and tell them the serious national security threats we face inside our country after years of an open border. We've got real trouble brewing, folks, in Mexico, not just in the Middle East. On the heels of the Mexican president saying she's going to mobilize our fellow countrymen in the United States, now the leader of the Mexican Senate has declared migrants rioting in Los Angeles are, quote, in their homeland, end quote, and that the city of Los Angeles is part of Mexico. He waved a map showing the pre-1830 boundaries when all of California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas were part of Mexico. So it appears the Mexican president and Mexican leadership are working